I'm Brianna Pettit. Again, I'm the Orientation and Mobility Specialist at our Braille Institute in Santa Barbara. And today we are inviting some guests from Guide Dogs of the Desert to talk about their guide dog school and a little bit about the process of preparing for a guide dog and the things that make their guide dog unique or their school unique. We will have time in the beginning, we'll be discussing how do you know you're ready for a guide dog. We'll also be talking about the application and training process and what it's like living as a handler of a guide dog, and then Q&A at the end. And I'm going to now introduce our guests of honor. We've got 3 people here today from Guide Dogs of the Desert. We have Tim Heidemann, who is the director. We have Melissa Hempel, who is in admissions, and Ryan Fox, who is the alumni peer support. So I'm going to now pass my baton over to, I think, Tim, who's going to start us off and take it away. Tim.
Thanks, Brianna. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to welcome you, and I wanted to introduce our student services team who'll be on this Zoom presentation today. Melissa Hempel is our admissions coordinator, and Ryan is our new alumni peer support associate. And I, Tim Heidemann, I'm the director of the team and of the student services department. But first things first, I'd like to speak a little bit about our school. Guide Dogs of the Desert in Palm Springs was built around the premise that every legally blind individual should have the opportunity to pursue independent mobility with a guide dog. We are small, but we're an intimate training center with no more than 6 students per class. This kind of makes for a customized experience from the in-depth application process all the way through to the personalized training. We work with every applicant to determine their readiness and to help them enhance their aptitude for becoming a member of a working guide dog team. We provide a comprehensive learning platform, helping individuals build the necessary foundation to best use a guide dog in their everyday lives. At our campus, we breed and train Labrador retrievers, as well as standard poodles, which are ideal for students with allergies in their home. Guide Dogs of the Desert goes to great lengths to carefully match every guide dog team we produce so that both parties thrive. Many low vision and blind individuals at some time in their lives consider the possibility of a guide dog for more independent mobility. Here at Guide Dogs of the Desert, we are continually asked by prospective applicants just what are the requirements for training with a guide dog. Determining whether someone is eligible for a guide dog essentially comes down to the answer to this question. Do you have the ability to handle the multiple skills and demands for being an active partner to a guide dog? Legal blindness and technically confident and independent orientation and mobility schools are the essential qualifications for a guide dog. At Guide Dogs of the Desert, we train our dogs to assist you in walking in a straight line, to prevent you from veering and guiding you from one point to another, indicating elevation changes like stairs and ramps and drop-offs along your route, finding and coming to a halt at up and down curves, locating the entrance and exit doors of a building, guiding you around obstacles, and stabilizing and enhancing your walking speed. Most importantly, though, our guide dogs are not a pet, but a highly skilled partner in travel. A lot of work goes into training of our dogs, and in order to maintain this high skill level, our guide dogs must be worked consistently. Yes, they're highly skilled in what they're trained to do, but they are only a complement to your foundational abilities in orientation and mobility. The dog can guide you safely, but it is your technical skills that directs the dog. Okay, but how does one determine if they're ready for the guide dog lifestyle? Let's look at 7 areas of readiness to consider if you're interested in obtaining a guide dog from us. First, there's motivational readiness. To become a successful team, are you prepared to play your role in the person-guide-dog relationship? I mean, dogs are social animals, and therefore they respond favorably to human leadership. And that means that you must be willing to assume the role. Do you understand that a guide dog requires a 24/7, 365 days a year care commitment from you for the life of the team? Are you positive about living with a guide dog when it's off duty? And are you up to forming a long-term relationship with your dog? There's psychological, cognitive, and emotional readiness. Will you be able to comprehend and remember the skills and knowledge needed to be successful with your guide dog? Will you be able to apply them independently over the long term? This includes processing sensory input and making quick decisions, all while multitasking. Are you emotionally stable so that you can form a satisfactory long-term working relationship with a guide dog and respond and attend to its physical and emotional needs? There's physical readiness. Do you have the necessary strength to manage your appropriately matched guide dog? This includes the necessary motor skills, range of motion, reflexes, and the coordination to work with a guide dog. Do you have the ability to react quickly enough if the guide dog exhibits inappropriate behavior or makes directional changes, slows down, speeds up, or ceases to move? Environmental readiness. Do you have the foundational skills and the principles and practice of orientation and mobility, both indoors, outdoors? And can you successfully route plan? Do you have the skills, knowledge, and experience to complete intersection analysis and understand traffic patterns to complete safe and independent street crossings? Do you have a minimum of 3 purposeful travel routes to destinations that will enable a guide dog to maintain a safe and satisfactory standard for their guide work? Accommodation and dog care readiness. Can you provide a guide dog with a safe and hygienic accommodation at home and at work? Do you plan to remain living at your current address for a minimum of 6 months following your guide dog training? Do you have the financial means to support a guide dog in sickness and in health? Social readiness. Are you prepared and capable of communicating with and directing others to appropriately interact with your guide dog while you maintain and support the dog's training, health, and positive behavior? Are you aware and have you really considered the increase in public attention, admiration, and scrutiny that will result from being accompanied by a guide dog? And are you comfortable with this? Lastly, dog knowledge readiness. Do you understand that a guide dog will require occasional management to deal with its distracted behavior and then redirect its attention back to on guide work? You have to be aware that the guide dog will be influenced by the environment, its instincts and senses, as well as its formal training. Do you understand that a guide dog will require regular feeding, watering, leash relieving opportunities in all types of weather conditions, regular energy releasing opportunities, and regular grooming? Do you understand that a guide dog will require routine veterinary care, and sometimes because of unplanned vet care, they'll be unable to work while they recover, leaving you to your cane or human guide? I know, that's a long and lengthy but necessary list for you to mull over. Okay, so you say, okay, Tim, I've mulled it over. I'm there. Once you've determined that you're ready, there are still certain technical skills you must possess for working a guide dog. First and foremost, there is the processing of sensory input and the making of decisions while multitasking. You must have the ability to maintain balance while negotiating curbs, steps, and traveling over varied surfaces. You also will need to manage the guide dog's behavior while also executing the body movements required for completing turns and following your guide dog. The shift to working with a guide dog means moving from seeking physical contact with objects in the environment, like you do when using your white cane, to negotiating around and through obstacles without touching them with the guide dog. Guide dog travel draws on many of the same tools one uses as a cane traveler. Alignment. Aligning oneself by maintaining an awareness of the line of travel is an ongoing focus. Minor deviations are expected, but right-angled turns should only be made deliberately. It's especially important before attempting a street crossing to assess your alignment relative to the appropriate line of travel and the flow of traffic. Then there's audible cues. Audible cues can be extremely helpful for orientation. Sound waves bouncing off of buildings, cars, and other objects can help determine where building lines end, if a parked car is in your path, and when to begin queuing for a turn. At intersections, interpreting traffic controls, traffic sounds, traffic speed and direction will all help in the determination of an all clear and safe to cross. There's time distance estimation. Time distance estimates are informed guesses about how far one has traveled relative to an initial location. Having a sense of how much ground is covered lets you gauge the location of destinations along the block, and then it's going to aid you in anticipating when you'll be approaching the next intersection. As a guide dog traveler, you may need to modify this estimate in regards to the current speed you're traveling with your guide dog. This is something that's accomplished through repetition and increased familiarity with your guide dog and traveling. Lastly, there's proprioception. Proprioception is a person's ability to sense the position, the location, orientation, and movement of their body through space. Unlike the human senses of sight and taste and smell and touch and hearing that advise us of the outside world, proprioception is an awareness of the body that comes to us internally. When traveling with low vision or no vision, proprioception helps us react properly to input gathered from the white cane, or can help us maintain a good following position while employing the services of our guide dog. We actually require you to provide at least 3 purposeful travel routes that you are currently using and that you'll continue to use after training. These routes are important because they give us an idea of the level of your travel independence and your personal motivation for stepping out into the world. The routes will also aid in your transition back home after training and provide sufficient work for your new guide dog. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, who will walk us through the Guide Dogs of the Desert program and application process.
Having a guide dog can be a most rewarding and transformative experience in your life. To appreciate this, we strongly encourage you to read A Handbook for the Prospective Guide Dog Handler, 4th edition. This book is available on NLS Bard, Amazon, and from the American Council of the Blind. Something to keep in mind is that as a student, you will undergo rigorous training, which will demand physical, emotional, and mental stability. Furthermore, the days will be long as training begins at 6 a.m. and will not end until 9 p.m. The training lasts 28 days, and the class will work in different types of terrain, weather, and challenging situations. Students must be able to function independently and walk for at least half an hour twice daily. They will also experience a definable pull from the dog in harness on their left side during travel. Instruction takes place 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. Through structured training with their guide dog, students begin the process of developing the guide dog team. Activities students are exposed to include instruction in suburban and urban areas, highly congested environments like shopping malls, crossing streets and intersections, maneuvering obstacles from point A to point B, stopping at up and down curbs, right and left turns, and use of elevators and escalators. Students will have the opportunity to ride public buses and the Metro Link. They will also train in rural and sidewalkless areas, complete a couple of nighttime routes, and experience the demands of a regional airport. As one can imagine, a lot of energy and stamina is needed in order to be able to get through the rigors of class, so we make Sundays a day of rest. Not only will students be out working with their new guide dog, but they will need to attend lectures that are provided by the GDD trainers. These consist of caring for your dog, training methodology, leash and harness commands, mobility, praise and corrections, and the importance of maintaining obedience practice. It is important for students to keep to the instruction schedule as this builds the foundation and strengthens the bonding process for a successful handler and guide dog team. Upon successfully completing instruction, GDD hosts a ceremony for its graduating class. The students' family and friends, puppy raiser volunteers, GDD donors, and local community members are all welcome to attend. This day is highly emotional and brings the whole process full circle. Alumni success is very important to us. We will make follow-up calls soon after you leave to make sure everything is going smoothly. We address issues and concerns as well as provide mentoring support throughout the lifetime of the guide dog team. So, if you want to apply to our school, we encourage you to thoroughly review all the information in the application available on our website or request one by email or mail before filling out the form. Also, make sure that you meet the following eligibility requirements. Degree of visual impairment. You must be considered legally blind by an eye care professional. Legal blindness is defined as visual acuity of 2200 or less in the better eye with the best correction possible, or a field of vision of 20 degrees or less. Orientation and mobility and independent living skills. You must have completed formal orientation and mobility training and have practiced your skills for at least 1 year. We will be following up with your O&M instructor for an assessment of your ability to travel independently. Physical ability. You must be in good physical health, have sufficient strength, flexibility, coordination, and endurance to be a guide dog's handler. Learning ability and mental health. You must have the cognitive and emotional ability to learn dog training concepts, apply them consistently, and demonstrate the abilities to work with and handle a guide dog appropriately. Financial ability. You must have the ability to financially cover the expenses associated with the maintenance and care of a guide dog. This includes high-quality food, monthly preventatives, vaccinations, and an annual veterinary wellness visit. You also must cover your guide dog's other veterinary and general expenses, such as treats, toys, crates, dog beds, etc. Home environment. You must be able to provide a safe, loving, healthy, and stable home for a guide dog. Travel environment. You must have at least 3 established dynamic travel routines to provide a guide dog with adequate work. Completing the application could take up to 1 hour. We recommend you have all contact information for your providers, O&M instructor, and references handy to reduce the time you need to spend. To make the paperwork collecting process efficient and timely, please provide email addresses for yourself, your providers, and references. This will be our avenue of communication during the whole application process. Upon receiving and reviewing your application, we will set up an informal phone consultation with you. During this consultation, we will inquire on information provided in the application, in addition to request information on your travel routes, your lifestyle, health status, and motivation for getting a guide dog. This will also be a chance to ask any questions you may have as well. At the conclusion of the consultation, information on the next steps of the application process will be shared with you, including filling out a release of information form, which allows us to request information from your listed contacts, providing medical reports from your eye doctor and physician, providing assessments from blind rehabilitation and O&M professionals, providing 3 personal references. Instructions for completing a travel skills and personal introduction video will also be provided. If you have experience with other guide dog schools, we will likely contact them for additional information. These necessary additions will aid in our assessing your readiness for our training program. Once the release of information, professional and personal references, and your video are received and processed, we will schedule a formal phone interview with you. During this hour-long conversation, we will dive deeper into the information provided by these supplemental forms and video. Together, we'll compile an overview profile of you to be presented to the selection committee. The selection committee is made up of our staff guide dog mobility instructors and O&M and blind rehabilitation specialists. We will review your application materials, assess your demonstrated skill to travel independently, and any additional factors that can contribute towards selecting the best dog for you. Our trainers are experts at pairing students with the most compatible guide dog partner. Factors involved with this process are determined by your gait, balance, temperament, home environment, and lifestyle. When there is a decision on your application, we will notify you by phone of the committee's findings. It is most beneficial if you are open to the breed and gender to ensure the most compatible and timely dog match. For applicants that do not meet eligibility requirements, we can review the committee's suggestions and work with you to pursue skill development and services for possible future reassessment or recommend more appropriate avenues to achieve your desire for independent mobility with a guide dog. Once a dog has been identified as the most compatible match for you, a class assignment will be made and the necessary travel, training, and class information will be sent to you. And now Ryan will share a personal perspective on the GDD guide dog experience.
Okay, so you've heard from Tim, who talks about whether you're ready for a guide dog, and we've also heard from Melissa talking about the application process. I'm actually going to be talking to you about the handler's point of view. So like Melissa said, my name is Ryan Fox. I'm actually known as the Peer Support Associate here at Guide Dogs of the Desert. And before we actually get into what I do as a job, I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. I am actually legally blind. I've been legally blind for about 26 years. And how I lost my sight was actually due to a malignant brain tumor that was positioned on my brainstem, which is not exactly a good place for it to be in the first place. The brain tumor itself was about the size of a grapefruit, and because of the size, it was causing fluid to build up in my head, and that fluid buildup put pressure on my optic nerves. So by the time they removed the tumor, the damage was already done, plus a lot of medical stuff such as chemotherapy and radiation hasn't exactly helped. But because of my vision loss, it has allowed me to not only learn Braille grades 1 and 2, but has also allowed me to pursue O&M, or orientation and mobility skills, which I actually still use today. Not many people know this, but orientation and mobility is insanely important for when you use a guide dog, not to mention using a blind cane. Without orientation and mobility, it's pretty hard to not get around. But here at GDD, it's actually been quite an experience, especially with me being the only blind person working here. I actually have talking equipment that is in my office, which I find hilarious because of the fact that I feel like Skynet is in my office, and my office always has voices coming out of it, especially when I'm not here. So how did I actually decide to get a guide dog? Well, first things first, I actually am a guide dog user, apart from just a cane user. I'm actually on my second dog. My first dog I actually got back in 2017. And Tia, my current dog, I actually received her of 2019. She is a beautiful black Labrador Retriever. She is 4 years old, and she and I will be working together for about 2 years this November 25th. Of course, having to decide whether I was ready for a guide dog was the first priority that I thought about before applying. First, when I was actually in high school, I actually heard and saw people that were actually using guide dogs and how it actually helps them with their situation. And ever since then, I've been wanting a guide dog. So I actually started doing a whole bunch of research. And what I discovered within that research is that these are working service dogs, and they need to be treated as such. They are not pets. And I realized that I actually wasn't at the point where I could actually get myself a service dog because I would not treat it the way it deserves to be treated. Yes, guide dogs, when they're not on harness, they can actually act like a regular dog in the house. But when they're out and about and they're wearing their harness, in order to do their job, they need to be treated in such a way that says that they are not a pet. They are just an extension of your vision. They are equipment that basically aids you in your disability. So of course, I actually waited until after graduation and a few years after that. And with the research that I have received about guide dogs over the years, is I have gotten a whole whole bunch more information and respect for guide dogs. So back in 2016, I actually applied for my first guide dog, which I actually did receive. And he was a Black Labrador Retriever. He was probably one of the best dogs I've ever had, but everybody says that about their first dog, because you never know in the future that you might get one that's not as good or one that actually could be better. But Sinbad was one of a kind, and unfortunately, I actually lost him. He actually got sick, and I had to do what was right for him, and I had to put him down. He was in a situation where he was not going to have a good, successful, manageable life. So I had to do what was right. I did reapply, and I'm actually on my second dog, Tia, and she is basically like my first dog, except she's more feminine. But with that, has made me more of a learned person when it comes to guide dogs. And actually, when I graduated in 2019, I actually got my job offer here at Guide Dogs of the Desert. But basically, my manager said that basically while he was watching me training with my dog, it was basically my job interview. And of course, I was actually supposed to start of April of 2020, but because of COVID, it didn't exactly work out, but it allowed me to get all the equipment that I needed for my job, hence the talking office. I've actually been working here at Guide Dogs of the Desert for the last 6 months, and definitely want to be working for the company for a lot more future events. What I actually do here, like I said, is I am the peer support associate. So I actually work on the human part of the school, meaning I handle all of our school's graduates and alumni, meaning that with any of our students that have graduated the program, or even students that are actually here at the program right now in school, my job is to handle them. I am in charge of them. So with our graduates, if I call them or if they call me and they have any questions, concerns, if they are just having a bad day with their dog, if they're having issues with discrimination, or at the point where their dog is actually getting to the age where they can't function as a guide dog anymore and they have to retire, or unfortunately if the dog gets sick and either dies of old age, or if the dog has been put down. My job is to handle that. And I think that is probably one of the most hardest things for me to do, because I have gone through that. But that also is an excellent way to help future students, as well as alumni, because of the fact that I can relate to them on a bigger and deeper level. So that when I do help them, they actually know that the person that they're talking to actually understands exactly what they are going through. And that's something that we definitely try to do here at GTD. We're actually trying to make everyone's experience a lot better, whether it's before, during, or after the program. We want them to know that this is a big family. We are here for them, and that's part of my job, is to be here for them, and to also just make sure that they are in a friendly place where they can just open up and let all of their stress and worries come out. As a guide dog user, life is very interesting. I can tell you that firsthand. But it's interesting to the point that it's just a whole different aspect of your life. Because of the fact that, yes, you have a guide dog, but you have just adopted a child. You have to wake up in the morning. You have to take the dog out to the bathroom. You have to feed the dog. You have to play with the dog. You have to groom the dog. You have to basically walk the dog, work it. without you working your dog all the time, it actually loses its skills. So you have to maintain your working relationship with your dog, whether you're going to school, going to work, or if you just wanted to go out and have a walk. Basically, your dog is going to go with you everywhere you go, which is a blessing because you always have your best friend with you. Of course, working here at Guide Dogs in the Desert has been really amazing because I've actually been able to learn things not only from a student point of view, but also from a worker's point of view. So I get to see everything that's happening from behind the stage, and also watching students get their dogs and to be able to really reach out and blossom and just grow with the relationship of their dog and to get that independent life that they so really deserve. Like we were talking about before, is that we need the skills in order for you to have the dogs. And there are important reasons why that is, such as orientation and mobility skills, whether you're healthy and mentally healthy to actually maintain the dog, and so on and so forth. But of course, here at Guide Dogs in the Desert has been really good because I actually bring the blind aspect to the company, meaning that for the past couple of months, I have actually helped make our dormitory a lot more accessible to our students. We've actually changed the light bulbs to make the building a lot more brighter and vibrant. We're changing the floors so the students can see it a lot better. We have also changed the furniture. We have also re-brailled some of the braille that needed to be replaced because it's been felt up too much. All the braille has actually been pushed down. So we actually have brand new, fresher braille that's in there. One of the biggest projects that I have been working on here, which I am so glad I'm done with, and we've already had it tested out with a student or a possible student of ours coming in the future. He's actually looked at the two maps that we have here. We have two 3D printed maps. One of them, which is actually a 3D printed map of our school and our campus. And basically you can feel inside the buildings, and I have personally labeled them in Braille and also have put dots on them so you can feel where the fire exits are. And we also have a 3D printed map of one of our routes that we actually do here in Banning, California. And it actually starts out at a church and goes all the way to a boys and girls club. And I've actually labeled that in Braille, but also put dots, which if you don't know what they are, they're just raised pieces of plastic that's got a adhesive on the bottom. So you can actually feel what the route is and what you're going to be doing when you do the route yourself. So students are able to actually feel that. So they have that in your head of what the route looks like and what route they're going to be doing themselves, so that it's a lot easier for the student to follow along. Here is probably one of my favorite parts about working in the school is part of my job when we actually have students here is we actually want to establish a relationship with the students. And my job is to hang out with them, have fun with them, but to also aid them with any questions that they may have during their training, whether it's a question I can actually answer or if it's something whether a instructor might need to take care of. If it's a situation where the instructor's not there, but they have a question for the instructor, I will take notes and I will actually let the instructors know when they come back for the students' additional training. And so much more is going to happen at our school. One of the newest things that we have at our school is a brand new sidewalk that is actually surrounding our school that we're actually going to put obstacles on for the students to use, and they get to use that while they're on campus, as well as a brand new bus stop that we're actually going to be putting a actual bus stop bench on. And in the future, we're actually going to have a brand new train platform so that our students can actually train on that on campus before we actually do it in real time. And I certainly hope that that was informational for you, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. So, Tim, is this the time for a Q&A? I think.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that was very informative. I've been taking notes. You guys are super thorough, and I'm very impressed. Thank you so much. You covered everything I could imagine, and there's probably still questions. So now's our time for anyone who has any questions. You can unmute and just announce your name first and
Connie.
ask the question. Hi, Connie, go ahead.
Hello. I didn't know that you also offer other dogs other than poodles.
Yes, Connie, we do Labrador Retrievers basically and the standard poodles.
Okay.
So those are the two breeds that we focus on.
Okay, I have spoken to you, and I'm meaning to finish off on my application, and Brianna would be helping me with the video part.
Great.
So, nice to speak to you again.
Yes, thank you, Connie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This is Nellie.
Go ahead, Nellie.
Hi, I'm Nellie Emerson, and I have been a guide dog handler for 55 years. And I currently do have a beautiful female shepherd from the Seeing Eye, but I'm wondering, what is your policy in working with older individuals? Because, you know, my dog is healthy and happy, and we're working well, but, you know, when she retires, I'll be close to 80 years old. And I'm wondering if your policy excludes older people.
It doesn't, on the surface, Nellie, it doesn't, but we do have our requirements. And the reason why we have the requirements is to make sure that we're going to have a successful team in the end of all our collaboration. So what we would do, and what Melissa mentioned, is that we work with each individual applicant. So if they're young and just starting out, or like yourself, the mature handler, that we would work on what we're going to require and then work with you with being able to satisfy those requirements. And if for some reason we weren't going to be successful, then we'd work with you to find a way to be successful, even if it wasn't at our school. But our policy is that we have our eyes on the finished product, which is a successful guide dog team. And I think that that's what we all should be focused on, is not so much the school as much as the end result that we're trying to achieve. So I guess what I'm saying, Nellie, is that we would work with you and we would help you transition to your next guide dog, whether it was from our school or another guide dog school.
Okay, yes, I'm a previous GDD graduate from 2012.
Oh.
So I am, you know, familiar, you know, with your school. And I did have another question. Do you have still offer home training? Because at that time I had home training.
Okay, the thing about home training, the most important thing for us is we're a small school. So it costs us more money and trainer time because we have a small group of trainers and we don't have a lot of money. So what we do is, that's not our first reaction to someone that wants to train. We prefer to have them here on campus. But we do deal with each individual, and we can explore in-home training.
Also, if I might intervene there, even if you do come to our campus, we definitely make sure that you are comfortable here. You are welcome. Food is provided. Obviously, lodging is provided. The only things that you need to do is just bring the clothes on your back as well as just your washables, and that's pretty much about it.
Great. Any other questions?
This is
This
Jennifer.
is Laura.
Okay, I heard a Laura, and who was the other person?
Jennifer.
Jennifer. Okay, go ahead, Laura, and then Jennifer.
Yeah, my question is, what's the policy at your school with using a white cane and training with the guide dog? Because I sometimes have issues with balance, and I haven't applied yet to receive a guide dog, but I was wondering if that's possible to have a guide dog and still use your white cane.
Well, Laura, I'm a little confused about it. I want to make sure that I understand. Usually, if one has balance issues, one has a support cane as well as a long cane. Is that what you're getting at? Now, the dog, you're right, can help with balance if it's not a major issue. So we would look at that issue when you made application about your balance and how much the dog needs to supply. But we have had people use the support cane and the long cane with the guide dog. The other thing is what's important though, Laura, too, is if you are working with a physical therapist or we might want to evaluate that again to make sure that we're going to have a successful outcome and the team. And so we might need to look into that a little bit more, but that's kind of the point I was trying to make, is that although there's kind of generic rules and we try to work with the individual to get them to be able to satisfy those needs. And if they can't, then how can we support it in a different way?
Also, from a student's point of view, because, I've gotten my dogs both here from GDD, is while on campus, before you even get the dog, yes, we're going to be using our white canes to get around. But even when we first get our dogs, because we're not necessarily fully trained on the dogs, we're going to be using the white cane with the dog, if that also helps. And even when you get your dog's harness, you're still going to be using your white cane on campus until we actually get the permission from the trainers to say you can use your dog. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the dog is replacing the cane. You're still going to need your cane way before your guide dog and even after your guide dog. Because first and foremost, it is a dog. So there are days where your dog's gonna be sick or it just doesn't want to work. So on those days, you're gonna need to use your cane anyway.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And Jennifer, go ahead.
I was a former student also of GDD. I've had 3 dogs from there. I've had dogs almost as long as Nellie for 50 years. I'm just wondering, do you still have a lounge in downtown Banning, or do you not work from there?
We do still do our training route in Banning. We don't have a lounge. There's a couple of spots where we kind of congregate so that the route is always ending up at that. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. So
there was an actual lounge there that we would go into and wait while different people.
Okay. Yes, we do. We've had to change it a couple of times because the one lounge, the place that we use closed, and then we moved to another one. And so right now we have We have two established ones that we use all the time. But you're right, the route always ends at a particular spot, and you're able to sit there and wait for the other students.
And then,
Basically, Ray,
second,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. My second question is, you were mentioning, Ryan, about the train platform that would be established. Is that a requirement that the students have to go through? Because I'm deathly afraid of train platforms and so forth.
Right, and I can totally understand that. I don't know, what were you going to say, Tim?
Well, what I was saying is we have the train platform for those people that need it or want to experience it. If you don't have that in your future, or you're afraid of them, then you're not going to be going to them. So you don't have to partake in that aspect.
Excellent.
But to tell you the truth, Jennifer, instead of, as Ryan pointed out, we didn't have an example on campus, so that you kind of had to experience it once you got there. So having it on campus, you can explore it. There's no real train, just so that you know. I mean,
No,
full disclosure, there's no real train.
No, it's the height that I'm afraid of.
And that's fine. And there are people that have issues with that, so you wouldn't be, that wouldn't be something that you would do. So no, you don't have to do that. We just have it as an option, as a strong option for people.
No, we just want our students to, for those that are going to be using trains to get to and from work or school or wherever it is that they're going, we just want our students to actually have the opportunity to work and get used to what a train platform is before we actually do the actual physical thing. It just gives them a little bit more practice. But if you're not going to be using train platform at all, then you're not obligated to do that if you don't want to.
Oh, that's good. And what about escalator training? Is that also non-requirement, or do you have to?
Well, that is actually something we all do. We don't do it like airports or anything. We actually usually go to a shopping mall, and we just take each student at a time to go do the escalator work. We actually take our time doing it, so there's no rush. It's just, working at your pace.
But also, Jennifer, we ask if you are going to be using an escalator, travel. If you don't like escalators, then you're not going to be using them. So you don't really need to learn how to use them.
Okay, I actually don't. I like escalators, but when I was training with a guide dog at one point, I don't know if they've changed the method, but they had us hold the dog sort of behind us, and that was really physically difficult for me.
Right. But again, is that if you don't use escalators or you're not interested in, then you don't have to. But if you do, we can practice and practice till, if you need that. But, it's one of those things. You also, as the handler, know what your reality is, know what you're going to be dealing with. So that's what we want the team to be successful. We don't want to force them to learn to do things they're not going to be using. So
that's good to know.
It's one of the things that while you're here, it's we have the training aspect of it, but we don't know what you do in your life and what your routes are like. So you're the one that would actually make that kind of judgment. And it's just for the escalators. I mean, for me as a guide dog user, it really depends on what kind of escalator you're using, because there are escalators that are wide, where you can actually have your dog jump on next to you on the escalator. The only escalators that I've seen where I need to have my...
Hello? Ryan?
Ryan's out there.
I guess he muted himself by accident.
It's mute. Doesn't look muted. Maybe he'll come back. But we have about 3 more minutes till the hour, and I also wanted to chime in and ask, has anything changed since the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of the training and what's being offered and the wait and all of that with waiting for a dog?
Okay. 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 Ryan his computer kicked them off, so that's why he disappeared. So I'm sorry, Brianna, you're asking if things have changed because of COVID. Basically, yes, like a lot of the guide dog schools, we weren't able to keep up our breeding cycles were interrupted. Our classes obviously were interrupted. So yes, the wait time has gotten to be a little bit longer than it normally is. But, you know, we'll be back. We'll be getting back on track, you know, as soon as possible. We're hoping by spring to be back in full force. But, you know, this whole thing with COVID has, every time we think we're getting to a better point, then, you know, another dimension or another strain happens. So we're holding a good thought, but I think we're getting back on track.